Coming to you once again for our midweek devotion. We're glad that you have joined us every week. Well, not every week, but most weeks. We gather at about 11 o'clock on Wednesdays, and I offer sort of a live read of the devotion I wrote for this week. My daughter was actually sick on Monday, and I was a little bit too, so this is a sort of a retread from one I wrote 6 years ago, but it is still relevant today. Sort of focuses on one of the scriptures from this past Sunday, which read from Matthew 24. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and given in marriage until the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing until the flood came and swept them all away. So too will be the coming of the Son of Man. Now, it's been almost 7 years since I was married. My wife and I got married on New Year's Eve 2015. That makes it really easy for me to remember my anniversary. But trying to get from Iowa, where I was living at the time, to Dallas, Fort Worth, where we got married, I had a bit of a harrowing experience. Now, I know one isn't supposed to expect everything to go perfectly when preparing for a wedding, but there was a time when I was standing in the St. Louis airport, wondering if I were somehow cast in a modern retelling of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, that Thanksgiving movie with John Candy and Steve Martin. Um, Let me tell you, there was flooding, there was closed bridges, there were delayed and canceled flights. I had a ticket agent tell me there was going to be no flights until later that week, until Wednesday, when I was supposed to get married on Thursday. I made frantic cell phone calls. I declared I was going to go rent a car and drive through the night, even though that the reason flights were canceled was because there was an ice storm rolling through. I'd go back to the same ticket agent and begged and pleaded and finally got on a seat that next day with a voucher to stay at a hotel. Now, I got to DFW a day later than I was expecting to, but the joy I experienced once I landed in Texas was fantastic. There was just relief that came over me. The surprise I felt actually being there was akin to my throat being shoved into the lowest pits of my stomach and wrenched a good couple times. I was surprised, even though I was expecting something to go wrong, as everyone told me I should. I was reminded of that story and this idea of still being surprised even when you expect something to happen when I read Jesus' description of the time of Noah and the coming of the Son of Man. People were doing their everyday thing. They were having dinner with family. They were going to happy hour with friends. They were celebrating marriages, undoubtedly working their jobs. And then the flood. That's how it will be with the Son of Man. It seems that we are once again in the days of Noah, going about our business as if there is no consequences or ramifications for what we do, that God's not going to come and be a part of us. There's no expectation of anything to change. I mean, how else does a phrase like hashtag YOLO proliferate into the collective subconscious of a society? We don't say it that much anymore, but we still act that way. It's as if we have forgotten that Christmas serves as a reminder that God stretched through time and space to be with us. The love of God was made manifest in a human, in Jesus. And the reason we read this text about the coming of the Son of Man in Advent is it reminds us to be watchful and to have the expectation that God will not abandon us, that God does show up. Advent is the season to assume a humble posture in the present while holding out hope for the future. God might show up in surprising ways and at surprising times. I mean, a stable in Bethlehem and a cross on Golgotha aren't really the first places you imagine God would show up, but God will be with you. It just won't be when you expect it. It will be when you least expect it. There's a phrase that gets battered around that I love. God's office is at the end of your rope. Maybe when you're begging and pleading in an airport trying to get to your wedding. So the admonition Jesus gives us is to go about your day, mow that lawn, rake those leaves, fill that coffee, type those emails, change those diapers, take those pills, make that dinner, marry that beautiful husband. But do so remembering that we are waiting and watching for something more. We live in a now but not yet time, peering out into the world where God's love will be made manifest once again. It might be surprising, but it will happen. Thanks for joining me for this week's devotion. I hope you heard a word of grace, a word of hope. If you liked what you heard, please like and share it with someone whom you think needs to hear it. You're also invited to join us for worship on Sunday morning. We gather together at 10:30 in the morning on Sundays. You can join us in person or online. But if not, our benediction is the same as always. God be with you till we meet again.